to our firm's website or Facebook page, whatever it is that we're using, and ultimately turning these visitors of the web page into actual customers, we have to be familiar with a couple of the web marketing terminology that is used to describe this phenomenon. Now, table 6.7 on page 244 is going to list some of these terms that are most commonly used to describe the impacts and results of online marketing. Now, impressions are the number of items, or the number of times an ad is served. So impressions are the number of times an ad is served. And as I said, these terminology is listed in table 6.7. I'm not going to just read through it verbatim. That's something that everyone needs to do on their own time to become familiar with the terminology that's used in online marketing. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. So once again, back with impressions, obviously this is the number of times an ad is served. The click-through rate measures the percentage of people who are ultimately exposed to an online advertisement who actually click on the advertisement. Now the view-through rate is going to measure the 30-day response rate to an ad. So instead of just someone actually just clicking on it, like the click-through rate, just immediately, the view-through rate is another measure. Whereas if someone sees an ad, maybe 1 or 2 weeks in a row, numerous times a week, then the chances are that they still might click on this ad. So that's ultimately what the view-through rate is measuring, is someone who clicks on an ad within 30 days, within when the first time they've actually been notified of this ad or have actually seen this ad. Now, hits are the number of HTTP requests received by a firm's server. Now, a single page may account for several hits if the page contains multiple images or graphics. And a single website visitor can generate hundreds of hits. And for this reason, hits are not actually an accurate representation of web traffic or visits for that case. But they are generally easy to measure, so that's one good thing about it. It is easy to measure, but it's really not that meaningful. So in all reality, the volume of hits can be huge, which sounds like a great thing, but in all reality, it's really not that true of a measure of the activity on an actual website. Now, page views are the number of pages requested by visitors. Now, obviously, with the increased use of the web frames that divide pages into separate sections, this can cause a single page to have 3 frames actually be counted as three different visits or 3 different page views. So just the same as hits, page views are also not a very useful metric. So stickiness, this is the average length of time visitors actually remain on a website. And this is an important concept. Stickiness is an important concept because it's important to marketers in particular, because the longer that a person actually stays on a website, then the more chance there is, or the greater the possibility is that they're actually going to purchase something from this website. So stickiness is something that's important to marketers. And stickiness is also a lot of times referred to as duration, so the amount of time, stickiness or duration. Now, just as important is what people do when they visit a website, and not just how much time they're spending there. So stickiness is important, but another thing that you have to measure, or there's a direct correlation with actually what they're doing, not just the time spent, but actually what are they doing on this website. For example, people don't go to Facebook to buy stuff and to research goods. They go on there to search and see what's up with their friends and just be social with other people that they know on the internet and that social platform. Whereas with Google, visitors are much more likely to visit because they're searching to actually buy a good or a service or a product of some sort. So the number of unique visitors is perhaps the most widely used measure of a website's popularity. The measurement of unique visitors counts the number of distinct unique visitors to a website. Now loyalty is going to measure the percentage of visitors who return in a year. So the year is our measurement period here. So loyalty is measured by the amount of people that actually returns to that site within a year's time from once they first visited the site. Now loyalty can be a good indicator of a website's following, or it could even portray the consumers or the public's trust in that website. Obviously, the more shoppers trust a website, then the more frequently they're going to visit it or even make purchases from it. Now, the term reach is typically a percentage of the total number of consumers in a market who visit a website. A good example of that is 10% of all book purchases in a year will visit Amazon at least once to shop for a book. So this provides an idea of the power of a website to attract market share. Now, recency, like loyalty, measures the power of a website to produce repeat visits and is generally measured as the average number of days elapsed between shopper or customer visits. Now, a good example of recency is a recency value of 25 days means the average customer will return once every 25 days. So it's just an average here. So the metrics that we've described so far do not really say much about the commercial activity or help us understand the conversion from visitors to customers. There are, however, some other measures that are more helpful in this regard. Now, the acquisition rate is going to measure the percentage of visitors who register or visit product pages. Obviously, this is indicating their interest in a product. Now, the conversion rate is going to measure the percentage of visitors who actually purchase something. So the acquisition rate is the people who register or visit products, whereas the conversion rate is the actual measure of the percentage of visitors who actually purchase something once they're on that site. Now the browse to buy ratio is going to measure the ratio of items purchased to product views. The view to cart ratio calculates the ratio of add to cart and clicks to products views. The cart conversion ratio, measures the ratio of actual orders to add cart clicks. The abandonment rate is going to measure the percentage of shoppers who begin a shopping cart form, but then ultimately fail to complete the form before making the purchase. Now, abandonment rates can obviously signal a number of potential problems. It could mean that there's a poor form design, so that the web page could just have a poor design just in general. There could be a lack of consumer trust for the website, so maybe consumers do not actually trust the individuals running the site, or maybe they just haven't heard of their name. They don't have that strong of a name brand recognition, so people are a little speculative whether they want to actually trust this site. Or the consumer purchase uncertainty caused by other factors. So it could obviously not have to particularly be with the lack of consumer trust or poor design. It could also relate to some uncertainty caused by other factors. Now, given that more than 80% of online shoppers generally have a purchase in mind when they visit a website, the high abandonment rate obviously could mean a huge loss in sales revenue. So ultimately, that's a huge problem. So that's why it's so important, as we discussed earlier in this class, of just making sure that we constantly test our sites and just make sure it's running as smoothly as possible, and that we want to make sure that our security in our site is also as strong as it could possibly be, to make sure that we don't have a high abandonment rate when dealing with our website. Now, retention rate indicates the percentage of existing customers who continue to buy on a regular basis, whereas attrition rate measures the percentage of customers who purchase once but never return within a year. So obviously, attrition rate is going to be the opposite of loyalty and retention rates. Now, social network marketing differs from display ad marketing because the objective is to create word of mouth, impact and alter the interaction among your visitors and between your visitors and your brand. So the conversion ratio is going to measure the number of comments produced per post to your site. The applause ratio measures the number of likes or shares per post, and everyone's familiar with this on Facebook. If someone posts something, you can hit the little like button, or you can share it with either one. So that's the applause effect, or the applause ratio is measuring that function. Now the amplification measures the number of retweets or reshares per post. Now all three of these measures that we just previously mentioned are different dimensions of word of mouth pretty much for advertising on social network sites. So it's just another means of word of mouth are these recent three measures that we just went over in the application, applause, and conversion ratio. Now the sentiment ratio is the ratio of positive comments to total comments. So that's the sentiment ratio, is the ratio of positive comments to the total number of comments. Now email campaigns have their own set of metrics. Open rate measures the percentage of customers who actually open the email and are going to ultimately be exposed to the message that is contained within that email. Now, generally, open rates are usually quite high and usually in the area of 50% or greater. Now, delivery rate measures the percentage of email recipients who receive the email. Click-through rate measures the percentage of email recipients who click through the offer. And finally, the bounce back rate measures the percentage of emails that could not be delivered. Now, there is a lengthy path from simple online ad impressions, the website visits, and page views to the purchase of a product and the company making a profit. So if we look at figure 6.8, this is a pretty cool little figure here. It's an online consumer purchasing model. You can see at the top of the model that we have the awareness and need recognition. Then we have the search function, the evaluation of alternatives, purchase, post-purchase behavior, loyalty. And pretty much if we move through this figure here, we can see that the awareness need recognition, that there's marketing communications at this point in which there'll be search engines, display ads, email, affiliates, social networks, blogs, mobile apps, and just apps. And at the bottom of the page here, it gives a little breakdown of how these different things, that different rates and measurement metric systems that we went over actually apply to turning in visitors from the site into actual loyal customers. So if you can see down here on the awareness need recognition, there was 100,000 impressions, 10,000 search clicks, and 1,500 likes within this awareness need recognition, where these marketing communications are actually taking place and reaching these potential consumers, which at this point is just visitors. Now we move on, the consumer purchasing model moves on to the search function and the evaluation of alternatives. So during this part and the search function in particularly, now we've narrowed it down to 1,000 unique visitors, which is only 1% of the impressions of the 100,000 impressions. We only got 1,000 unique visitors out of that. So there's a 1% of the impressions at this point. So you can see how quickly we've narrowed this down already just by moving on to the second function of search. And then we move on between the evaluation of alternatives and ultimately into the purchasing phase of this model. So this deals with the page views and stickiness, site design, and all that sort when we're dealing with the evaluation of alternatives. So obviously this is where if people are evaluating the alternatives and almost making the purchase, then this is where they're actually staying on the website. So that makes sense why it's referring to the site design and the page views and the stickiness here. Because remember, stickiness is the same thing as the duration of how long they're on here. So once we move on to the purchase right here, we can see that there's only 50 purchases, and out of the unique visitors, the 50 purchases is only 5% of that 1,000 unique visitors. So you can see even once again how quickly it narrows down. So with 50 purchases, that's the 5% rate. And out of those 50 purchases, there's only going to be, if we move to the post-purchase behavior / loyalty, the last element in this purchasing model. So as you can see here, out of the 50 purchases, we only have 12 loyal customers, which is only a 25% retention rate. So 12 loyal customers based upon the 50 purchases gives us the 25% retention rate. So as we can see here, the conversion of visitors into customers, and then ultimately loyal customers, is a complex and long-term process that takes several months or even longer, really. So that just shows the importance of how difficult it is to actually get just these viewers and visitors on websites and turn them into actual loyal customers. So out of 100,000 impressions and 10,000 search clicks and 1,500 likes, it ultimately only narrowed down to 50 purchases and 12 loyal customers. So not very much. So you can see how this marketing campaign and this marketing phenomenon online can really be a difficult task to try to turn these visitors into customers. Now, how well does online advertising really work? Obviously, we've been shown by this chart that it does work, but it takes a lot to actually get it to work. Now, in general, Facebook ads have a far lower click-through rate, usually because Facebook users do not go to their pages to purchase goods or experience ads of any kind, as I mentioned prior. They're on there to be social and to see what's going on with their friends. Mobile ads outperform standard banner ads by up to 6 times. And rich media and video ads are much more effective than banner ads. Now, how effective is online advertising compared to offline advertising? Figure 6.9 provides the insight into this question. I'm not going to get into it, but just to take a quick glance at it, everyone can take a glance at this on their own free time when studying the chapter. I'll just start at the top of the figure here on 6.9. Mobile ads, for every dollar spent, there was $1.55 of return on investment, whereas for television, it was $6.50 return for every dollar invested. So that's just a little insight there, and I'll just read one of the middle ones here. One of the newspapers, the one's just $2.25 return for every dollar spent. So little breakdown of comparative returns on the investment of the different forms of marketing that we can actually have, different channels that can be used. So in general, the online channels compare very favorably with traditional channels. This explains in large why online advertising has grown so rapidly in the last 5 years. So a study of the comparative impacts of offline and online marketing concluded that the most powerful marketing campaigns used multiple forms of marketing, including online, catalog, television, radio, newspapers, and retail stores. So ultimately, consumers who shop multiple channels are spending more than consumers who shop only with a single channel. Now, part of this could be because they have more disposable income, But it also could be because of the combined number of touch points that marketers are making with the customer or the consumer with these different channels at one time. Now, the fastest growing channel in consumer marketing is the multi-channel shopper. So the cost of online advertising. Effectiveness cannot be considered without an analysis of cost. So obviously, we always have to know what the cost of something is. Very important when running any type of business. Cost is very important. Initially, most online ads were sold on a cost per thousand impressions and a CPM impressions basis. And with the cost per thousand impressions, advertising purchase impressions were in 1,000 unit lots. But now today, other pricing models have been developed and are evolving. Now these newer pricing models are known as the cost per click, known as CPC. And this is where the advertiser pays a pre-negotiated fee for each click on an ad that an ad receives. Or something related to that as well is the cost per action, known as a CPA, where the advertiser pays a pre-negotiated amount only when the user performs a specific action. Usually this action has to be either a registration or a purchase of a good. And obviously hybrid arrangements can also be made by combining two or more of these models and ultimately making it more of a customized or more of a tailored approach to your model. Now, one of the advantages of online marketing is that online sales can generally be directly correlated with online marketing offers or efforts. One way to measure the effectiveness of online marketing is by looking at the ratio of additional revenue received and then dividing that by the cost of the campaign. Now, any positive whole number that is derived from this formula that we just went over between the revenue divided by the cost means that the campaign was ultimately a success. A more complex situation is going to arise when both online and offline sales revenues are affected by an online marketing effort. A large percentage of the online audience uses the web to shop but not buy. Now, these shoppers buy at physical stores, and unfortunately, purchases at physical stores cannot be tied precisely with the online email campaign. In these cases, merchants have to rely on less precise measures such as customer surveys at the store locations to determine the effectiveness of online campaigns. And obviously, as we all know, surveys can be biased, a lot of times not really truthful. So obviously that's why it's a less precise measure than actually being able to apply some quantitative measurement to understanding the cost and benefits that actually were derived out of whatever campaign was ran. Now, to measure marketing effectiveness, you need to understand the cost of various marketing media and the process of converting online prospects into online customers. Now, that is the end of Chapter 6. Once again, Chapter 6 homework is posted to Moodle. Chapter 6 homework is located on page 256 and 257 at the end of Chapter 6. Chapter 6 homework consists of questions 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, and 14. Once again, that's questions 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, and 14. And they are also located already down here, if everyone look and see. Down here, Chapter 6 homework. So obviously Chapter 6 homework is going to be due next week. We'll be starting in the Chapter 7, so everyone try to finish up Chapter 6 homework. As I said, it is due next Wednesday, and we'll be starting Chapter 7 on Monday. So I hope everyone has a good day and a good weekend, and I will see everyone on Monday.